you currently have some belly fat and you don't know why you have it or how to get rid of it, I'm going to teach you exactly how to get rid of it and get a flat stomach and lose your stubborn belly fat and overall body fat sustainably while managing the craziness with your busy career and busy schedule, without you having to follow the torture-oriented methods that are taught online by fitness coaches and influencers that have you wanting to bang your head up against a wall. And the reason why we follow more of a specific scientific-based approach, a hormonal-based approach that does not involve counting calories, is because I'm an apprentice of a medical doctor with 40 plus years of clinical experience, and now I'm helping career-driven men all around the world get a flat stomach and completely be rid of their belly fat without having to count, track, or restrict calories by addressing their hormones, insulin especially, that is really what's causing the problem here, storing body fat over and over. And we're going to teach you how you can reverse this process and get that flat stomach. So the main reason why most of you actually have belly fat to start with is because you have a little bit more in the way of visceral fat, usually. And visceral fat is a body fat that is built up around your organs. Now, it is much different than the subcutaneous fat that is built up around your skin. Usually when you first actually start to store body fat and things start to take a turn, usually whenever you start to get overwhelmed with work and you start to cut corners with your diet and cave into temptations with your coworkers, or whenever you're working from home, you get done with a Zoom meeting and you go crazy in the pantry. And you most likely, if you're watching this video, you've kind of gotten to the point where you really love the gym, you love lifting weights, but you have a really difficult time keeping yourself accountable, staying consistent, and also making time for it in a way that actually works for your schedule. So your activity level has gone down and your diet has crashed as a result with you being so busy. So it's created this perfect storm, and now you have some belly fat that you don't know how to get rid of. So that's most likely the situation that you're in right now with a high skill profession that has you struggling to make time for what's important, which is your health right now. But luckily, we're fixing that right now. So when you have belly fat, right, it's because you usually have a little bit more in the way of visceral fat. And whenever you are inactive for a long time, you're losing the benefits that normally would come from your exercise routine that would boost your metabolic rate, right? And when you're cutting corners with your diet and you're eating things that are fattening and spiking your blood glucose levels and your insulin levels, now you're once again creating that perfect storm, low metabolic rate or lower than what it was before when you were exercising. And now you're eating foods that are fattening, that are causing you to become what's called hyperinsulinemic, right? Hyperinsulinemia is just a big fancy term for insulin staying elevated for hours on end. And this can actually lead to you becoming insulin resistant, especially the subcutaneous adipose tissue becoming resistant to the function of insulin. Now, what the hell does all that mean, right? So let's say, I just get done with a Zoom meeting and I go into the pantry and I just eat a bunch of brownies that are in the pantry, right? Or whatever other processed sugar, processed carbohydrate that you want to use as an example. I'm going to spike my blood glucose levels and I'm going to spike my insulin levels, even if I am somewhat metabolically healthy to a degree. But if you're in that situation, you haven't been working out, you've already been cutting corners, you're most likely not. And you're going to get a big spike in your blood glucose levels, you're going to get a spike in your insulin levels. And insulin is secreted by the pancreas through the beta cells, right? As soon as the body sees this blood glucose go up, so it'll take this glucose and shuttle it off into the fat cell, into the subcutaneous region, right, initially. But if this process has been happening over and over and over again, and we're just overflowing our fat cell with all this glucose, or even in certain cases, polyunsaturated fat if we're eating foods that have a lot in the way of seed oils, then this fat cell will begin to become resistant to the function of insulin just to protect itself from imploding. So then, where do we start to store body fat? Around our organs. So usually if you have visceral fat, you are certainly taking steps closer and closer towards mortality, because this has been illustrated in many different clinical trials showing that whenever you have more in the way of visceral fat, your likelihood of suffering from some sort of mortality risk is higher because you are most likely insulin resistant. And insulin resistance is associated with a lot of different mortality risk factors: cardiovascular disease, hypertension, stroke, and many others that we don't even have time to cover in this video. But you get the point. Every single time you are eating things like that, you are taking steps closer and closer towards mortality, basically. Especially when you are insulin resistant, you have more in the way of belly fat, you're lethargic right now, you have brain fog, you want to fall asleep at your desk at certain days, especially when you had a really bad night of sleep. This is really what is called metabolic syndrome, right? Everything that I just described is most likely the situation that you're in, and you're most likely suffering from some of those symptoms, at least a few of them. And if you have some belly fat right now, is some of it subcutaneous, which is the fat that's built up around your skin? Certainly. But if this has been going on for a long time, you've hit the pinnacle of your career many, many years ago, and things have slowly progressed and gotten worse and worse, and you haven't been active for a while now, and you've been cutting corners with your diet for a long time as well, then you're most likely, not diagnosing you here once again, but you're most likely at least taking steps closer towards insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, or you may be there already. Now that we have a good idea of what actually caused us to get here in the first place for this particular situation, how do we actually reverse this process? Step one is we actually want to completely regulate the function of insulin. We want to make sure that we cut out anything that could possibly put us in a situation to spike insulin to a very high degree and keep it elevated for hours on end, which is exactly what hyperinsulinemia is. And the first thing that we would have to cut out, obviously, is processed sugar. Any sort of man-made sugar that is basically foreign to the human body that we've only been eating for the past 200 to 300 years in human existence. I'm talking about processed, man-made sugar like maltodextrin, dextrose, etc. Every single colorful, sugary food that you see will most likely have one of those added sugars, right? You don't need me to tell you that brownies and cookies are unhealthy, but that's the first thing that we want to cut out, as well as processed carbohydrates. So those are the first two, processed sugars and processed carbohydrates. Now the third thing that nobody is really talking about is seed oils. Seed oils like canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, etc. They are found in many different foods that are actually made out to be healthy, but they have a whole lot in the way of omega-6 linoleic acid, which is a polyunsaturated fat that is extremely inflammatory, and it is very abundant in nuts as well. Even peanuts have a 5,500 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, and I covered why nuts are actually not a food that you want to be prioritizing at all to lose body fat, and I will link that video down below in the video description, the foods that are miscellaneous that are actually unhealthy. Getting back to it here, if we're eating these foods that have a whole lot in the way of this omega-6 linoleic acid, then we are going to put ourselves in a position where insulin has to take this polyunsaturated fat here and store it somewhere, because whatever comes into the body, we have to utilize 100% of that fuel, and it's a very difficult fuel source to actually use to burn, right? And the likelihood of you getting a really strong insulin response when consuming this is going to be very, very high, especially if you are already metabolically unhealthy. So cutting these out, being an ingredient detective where you're constantly looking at the label, constantly looking at the ingredients list, no matter what you're actually about to pick up at the grocery store, is going to be a huge first step. Processed carbohydrates, processed sugars, and seed oils. Usually the majority of very unhealthy ingredients that are artificial, bioengineered, man-made with 7 syllables are going to fall into one of these 3 categories. And seed oils especially is a hidden one that is found in foods that are made out to be healthy, like peanut butter, protein powders, protein bars, and many others, right? So if we cut those out to start with, you should already start to see incredible and consistent results. And certainly with Michael, that's the first thing that we did as well. He lost 30 pounds in 3 months, and he completely cut out all 3 of those foods, and we actually create what's called a foods to eat and avoid list, and that was on it. And Hollis, he has lost well north of 30 pounds now as well in the span of 3 months, and he did the exact same thing while traveling and managing his busy career as a college professor. So it's entirely possible for you to see the exact same results as well if you actually take action with this and you cut out the foods that you know you have to cut out. Probably didn't expect me to give you advice that's just so basic like that. You probably wanted me to give you some more sauce, right? And trust me, I will, but it'll be the healthy one. And the healthy thing that we want to do here is we want to include more in the way of saturated and monounsaturated fat, right? Of course, everyone's macro split is going to be a little bit different depending on what their current weight loss goal is or how metabolically healthy they are. That's what we fully customize here. But anyway, if we do eat more in the way of dietary fat, our likelihood of getting an insulin response is actually 0% because there is no glucose in saturated fat or monounsaturated fat. Saturated fat is mainly found in red meat, and monounsaturated fat is mainly found in marine sources, different fish. So if we cut out processed carbohydrates, sugars, and seed oils, and we start to eat more in the way of monounsaturated fat and saturated fat, and dietary protein as well, which you kind of have to if you're going to eat more saturated fat and monounsaturated fat, you will start to see the number on the scale drop tremendously, and you will start to notice that your belly fat will start to reduce. You'll start to lose more and more belly fat, especially if you go 100% all in. If you don't commit to it, of course, you're not going to see results, just like with anything else. But that is why the guys that I work with one-on-one that are committed will lose, on average, about 6 to 10 pounds in their first month working with me once I customize a nutrition plan and a workout program for them. And of course, on top of that, we didn't even touch on exercise, but if you're making these changes to your diet and you find a way to dedicate 45 minutes at least per week and get a bigger boost in your metabolic rate by targeting each muscle group each week, which is ultimately all you have to do in the first place if you want to see weight loss results through the perspective of exercise, then you will absolutely be seeing changes in the mirror as long as you're patient and you're committed. And of course, many of my clients have seen amazing results like I mentioned before, but Chris lost north of 10 pounds in his first month. Michael and Hollis, like I mentioned earlier, they lost north of 10 pounds in their first month. Joe, same thing. And basically almost everybody that I have worked with one-on-one in their first month, they have lost on average about 6 to 10 pounds within their first month. Now, of course, not all of them had the same workout program, macro split, or nutrition plan, but they did follow the same theme and the same approach that we just went over here, which is a hormonal-based approach, right? That's literally what I just broke down for you guys in full just now. Literally how to unlock your own body fat stores and use the visceral fat, the fat that's built up around your organs as fuel, assimilate that, break that down, and end up shrinking your stomach day by day. And then you'll slowly start to see progress, especially if you are taking progress pictures once per month. You should notice some noticeable progress in the mirror if you are making these changes, you're 100% committed to them, and you cut these foods out. The problem is, many of you guys know, or at least have a good idea of what you should be doing, but you have a difficult time doing it anyway because there's nobody holding you accountable except yourself. And your busy schedule has drained you, and you have a really difficult time actually making time for your health and pushing yourself to go to the gym and pushing yourself to actually do the things you know you have to do because you're so overwhelmed, you're so stressed out. And all the symptoms that we've gone over so far that are associated with metabolic syndrome and having belly fat have caught up to you as well as your work. And if that's you and you want some accountability, you want some structure too, then I highly recommend for you to click the link on the top, middle, or bottom of the video description to speak with me directly to see if I can help you get a flat stomach and lose your stubborn belly fat sustainably, as well as the body fat around the rest of your body too. And many guys need this, right? Because you get to the point where things are just so crazy with your life. Things are so crazy with work. You may even have a family as well, a wife and kids, and that makes things even crazier. But at the end of the day, we all have the same number of hours in our week, right? About 168. If we subtract sleep, which is 8 hours per night, get 56. 168 minus 56 is 112 hours. And even if you're working 80 hours a week, what are you doing with the rest of those 32 hours? Especially if you've been watching this channel for a while, that you really just need 45 minutes each week to dedicate to exercise to get the benefits that you need to lose your belly fat. So we make time for what's important. If you're having a hard time doing that right now, then investing in a coach, even if it's not me, is going to help you tremendously. And I know for a fact I can help you tremendously as well. So once again, feel free to reach out and feel free to ask me any questions by clicking the link near the middle of the video description to access my Instagram if you want to message me with any questions about the program or how I can help you specifically. So that is it for this video. Feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. Reach out to me in case you need help with one of those links on the top, middle, or bottom of the video description, and I will see you guys in the next video.